Good morning. I'm Jim Hoagland of the Washington Post, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to the fifth plenary session. If I could have everybody's attention. This fifth plenary session is going to concentrate on the G20, the organization that has come into being somewhat haphazardly but providentially, because we're looking at an organization that is perhaps finally large enough to answer the question of legitimacy, to be a legitimate voice for the different regions of the world, and also small enough perhaps to be effective, to make decisions and perhaps to implement them in a short period of time in a world that is moving much more rapidly than it ever has before. It's amazing that the G20 has, after an initial period of some doubt, gained enthusiasm in my home, the American capital of Washington, because it's clear that the United States has not always been at the forefront of those countries working for global governance. But both President Obama and his predecessor, President Bush, after being prodded very effectively about the G20 by the French president, Nicolas Sarkozy, have welcomed the G20 and have put American resources into promoting G20 leadership. It was the United States that effectively suggested that the G20 should become the international forum that deals with international economic matters as a matter of primacy. So the question of leadership is very important, and we have two distinguished guests today, and that, I think both of them, their presence explains a little bit of the American enthusiasm for the G20. Because in South Korea, we have an American ally and a country that has been very efficient in many, many ways, and is under An Yo-hong has been able to lead the formation of the G20 this year. He will soon be passing the baton, as in a relay race, to Jean-David Levitte, who is well known in Washington. He was ambassador to the United States during one of the most difficult periods of French-American relations, that is the build-up and conduct of the invasion of Iraq. And I have to say, as a student of diplomacy practiced in the United States, in Washington, if you had to choose a performance under fire, under pressure, in the last 10 years as the best one, it would be Jean-David Levitte's role in representing his country in views that were not particularly popular with the American administration and remaining very effective at the same time. To launch us, I'm going to turn the podium over to Samir Atta, who actually has reversed a famous French dictum, which was that journalism is a fine career à condition d'en sortir, that is, if you can get out of it. Samir started actually as an engineer and somehow found his way into the world of journalism. He is now the editor-in-chief of the Arabic edition of Le Monde Diplomatique. Samir.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. Very quick introduction. We have two eminent persons today, Mr. Am Ho-young, the Korean ambassador at large for the G20, the Deputy Minister of Trade in the Ministry for Trade and Foreign Affairs, and it's important that the two ministries are joined together there. He knows Paris. He served at the OECD. He served also in Geneva, WTO, as I understand, and in the Ministry in Foreign Affairs. A friend of me involved in the G20 told me that not only Korea did an excellent job being the first country to come recently to the G20 and being leading the G20 during this year, but the personal skills of Mr. Ho-young were very important. Without him, the thing would have been different. This is what he told me. We expect that he tell us about what types of structural policies Korea had promoted during its presidency, to foster sustainable, balanced, and inclusive growth. I'm, as Monde Diplomatique, very sensitive to the inclusive growth issue. And then il va passer le flambeau, I will say it in French, to Mr. Jean-David Lévite. He was presented. He is defined as the diplomateur for his excellency doing the diplomatic work, both in the UN and Washington. And we expect him to tell us what will be the priorities for the French presidency, especially that France, as it was said, will be in the same time president of the G20 and the G8. Okay, the floor for you.